July 1099. The blood has barely dried in the streets of Jerusalem. The pilgrim soldiers of the First Crusade give euphoric thanks, unaware that their conquest has already summoned its answer. Al-Afdal, Grand Vizier of the Fatimid Caliphate, has mustered a force of around 20,000 men and is marching north. The Egyptian fleet puts to sea alongside them. His orders are simple: obliterate the devilish Franks. Rumor has run ahead of the Crusaders that they slice open the dead to root out swallowed gold, that they practice cannibalism. The Vizier is determined to restore order and cleanse the holy places of the Frankish pestilence. Three years of marching, 4,000 kilometers of disease, starvation, and slaughter. And it shows. When the Crusaders close on the walls of Jerusalem, they bring with them something no garrison can fortify against: the accumulated ruthlessness of men who have survived the unsurvivable. What follows is a masterclass in siegecraft and a massacre. 15,000 men storm the streets of Jerusalem. They are all that remains of perhaps 100,000 Crusaders who set out from Europe in 1095 and 1096, a force whittled down by years of brutal war. The fighting for the Temple Mount is fierce, and it drags well into the evening. Meanwhile, Godfrey of Bouillon has pulled free from the carnage. He walks the exterior of the city walls barefoot, a man giving thanks for a miracle. But the miracle has a shadow. As the last offenders fall, widespread pillage breaks out across Jerusalem. Crusaders seize houses on the spot, claiming everything inside. Many become rich overnight. At the Tower of David, a group of defenders and civilians surrender themselves to Raymond of Toulouse. He organizes an escort and has the high-ranking Fatimid prisoners marched under guard toward Ascalon. On Temple Mount, the Norman Lord Tancred captures several hundred more: soldiers, women, children. He places them under the protection of his personal banner, a pledge that they will be held for ransom, not slaughtered. For a few hours, they count themselves fortunate. But when Tancred returns at dawn, his prisoners lie dead, cut down in the uncontrollable chaos of the sack. But the worst is not yet over. The scouts return with alarming news. A vast Fatimid army is on the march. Terrified that thousands of captives within the walls of Jerusalem could rise to join the enemy relief army, the Crusader leadership panics. A merciless decision comes swiftly. Every remaining prisoner in Jerusalem is to be put to the sword. Chronicler Albert of Aachen records the horror that followed. The killing does not stop until there is no one left to kill. The Fatimid army is fast approaching, boots and hooves grinding across the shingle of the Sinai, warships threading the blue Mediterranean coastline. This is no ordinary force. Shiite Persians from Cairo's royal corps march beside Arab and Seljuk fighters who have lost everything to the Crusaders, their homes taken, their families scattered. Kurds, Armenians, and the elite royal guard the Crusaders call Ethiopians, summoned from as far as Nubia, swell the column further. Every man in that host has a reason to fight, and together they wind toward Jerusalem. The Crusaders, meanwhile, are busy arguing amongst themselves. Fires across the city are barely cold. Yet already the question of who will rule Jerusalem comes to the fore. Three voices rise above the rest. Raymond of Aguilers has become the loudest clerical voice in the Crusader camp since the death of the papal legate Adhémar le Puy. He shouts that it's a sin to crown a secular king in the city where Christ died. Only the church, he insists, has the right to rule Jerusalem. But Aguilers is no holy man speaking for God. He serves Raymond of Toulouse as personal chaplain, doing his boss's bidding under the guise of piety. And Raymond of Toulouse wants Jerusalem for himself. The Count is the oldest, wealthiest, and militarily most powerful prince on the Crusade. He commands more than half the remaining Crusade army. He has been politicking for leadership since the march began. But his arrogance and naked ambition have cost him. The other princes distrust him. The popularity contest, he knows, is slipping toward Godfrey of Bouillon. So Toulouse deploys his puppet. Aguilers demands the title king be rejected entirely, and that the princes elect, instead, a humble ecclesiastical advocate of the Holy Sepulchre. If successful, Jerusalem will become a church-ruled state with no secular king at all. But a church state still requires an army, and since Toulouse controls most of that army, he becomes, inevitably, the real power behind the throne. Aguilers' pious language is a mask. He hopes to stall the process until the new papal legate arrives from Rome. Godfrey's faction can outvote other princes, but they cannot override the literal voice of Pope Urban II, who is a friend of Raymond of Toulouse. Urban's new legate would undoubtedly declare Jerusalem a church patrimony, thus handing the keys to Raymond. The Council of Princes sees right through it. To speed up the process, they offer Toulouse the crown directly. And here, Raymond plays what he calculates to be his masterstroke. He refuses, with theatrical display of pious humility, rejecting the very word king in the city of Christ. Toulouse's reasoning is cold. His money and troops make him indispensable. The princes, unable to survive the Saracens without him, will beg him to accept. He will assume the throne not as an ambitious lord, but as a reluctant servant of God, summoned by popular demand. It is the oldest power play in the medieval playbook. But the Count has fatally misjudged his peers. For Robert of Flanders, for Tancred, for the high clergy, submitting to a dominant Raymond means surrendering their own futures. A Raymond monarchy is not a throne they want to prop up for the next decade. So when he offers his ever so pious refusal, they accept it. They thank him graciously for his humility. Then they elect Godfrey of Bouillon. Godfrey is capable, but cooperative, formidable, but manageable. Everything Raymond is not. The trap, however, is not yet sprung, because Godfrey has been watching. He sees immediately what Aguilers built, a rhetorical snare. If he insists on the title king, the clergy will brand him prideful and sacrilegious. Toulouse's faction will use it as license to rebel. So Godfrey calls their bluff entirely. He agrees with Aguilers. He accepts the made-up title, Advocate of the Holy Sepulchre, and takes every grain of secular power the title was designed to prevent. With a single move, he renders Raymond's entire scheme worthless. Raymond of Toulouse had constructed a trap that caught only himself. His own words, taken literally and honored publicly, strip him of everything he maneuvered to win. He is furious and utterly powerless to change the outcome. Toulouse still holds one card. The Tower of David, Jerusalem's great citadel, had been surrendered to him by the Fatimid garrison on their way out. He refuses to give it up. But his own men look out the windows and see what their commander will not. They are surrounded, not by Saracens, but by fellow Crusaders. Godfrey's forces ring the citadel on every side. No soldier in that garrison has any appetite to die in a civil war over Raymond's wounded pride. Behind their lord's back, his guards crack. They hand the keys of the citadel to Godfrey's men. Raymond flew into a rage. He cursed the barons, cursed his own clergy, and stormed out of the citadel. He angrily marches out of Jerusalem with his army in tow. The man who had spent years maneuvering for supreme authority over the Crusade departs the holiest city in Christendom in a fury and occupies Jericho instead. There, in a gesture of conspicuous piety, he follows in Christ's footsteps and has himself rebaptized in the Jordan River. It is the act of a man trying to remind the world, and perhaps himself, that he still matters. Meanwhile, Tancred is in the field. He has held Bethlehem since before the siege, and his patrols are pushing west, probing the roads and valleys beyond the city. What his scouts find stops them cold. The army and navy of the Fatimids are massing at Ascalon. The force gathering on the coast dwarfs anything the Crusaders can put in the field. A host large enough to swallow the remnants of the Crusader army whole, or simply sit outside Jerusalem's shattered walls and wait for starvation to finish the work. Tancred's riders gallop back to Jerusalem and lay the intelligence before Godfrey. He grasps the peril immediately. His summons go out to every prince at once. But Raymond of Toulouse refuses to move. He is convinced the threat is fabricated, that Godfrey is inflating the danger as a pretext to force his submission. It is, in his reading, one more political maneuver in a war fought as much with rumour as with steel. It takes Tancred's own scouts, reporting directly and independently, to shatter that conviction. Only then does Raymond of Toulouse turn his army around and march back to Jerusalem. Back inside Jerusalem's walls, the command structure is paralyzed. Raymond of Toulouse refuses to take orders from the man he believes stole his crown. Robert of Normandy has no intention of bleeding his remaining troops to secure a rival's new borders. The princes circle each other in mutual suspicion while an existential threat marches up from the south. And the troops they command are broken. 3 years of siege, starvation, and slaughter have hollowed out the Crusader rank and file. These are not the zealous pilgrims who took their vows in 1096. They are gaunt, exhausted shadows, physically spent and emotionally numb. The leadership reaches for the one weapon left: faith. Days earlier, Arnulf, the newly appointed Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, had produced a fragment of the true cross, unearthed conveniently from a hidden location within the city. The Holy Lance had been discredited by the troops after the gruesome fate of its finder. This new relic is meant to fill the void. But the army is too broken to care. Even the sight of the true cross draws only hollow stares. It rouses a fraction of the men. The rest stand unmoved. But Godfrey sees clearly what the others will not. Jerusalem has no food. The streets are choked with unburied dead. Disease is not a possibility, it is a countdown. Waiting behind these walls means dying in them. The only option is to ride south and meet the Fatimid Vizier Al-Afdal on the march before his vast host can consolidate and lay siege. With the loyal Robert of Flanders at his side, and Patriarch Arnulf bearing the true cross, Godfrey moves out toward Ramla. There, a stroke of fortune. The local prefect, a former Fatimid official, is happy to serve his new master. He warns Godfrey that Al-Afdal will initiate talks to lull the Crusaders into a false sense of security until the Fatimid fleet and North African reinforcements fully assemble. The Crusaders' best, perhaps only chance, is a surprise attack before the enemy can deploy his full strength. Then Godfrey's scouts return from Ascalon. What they describe staggers belief. A Fatimid host 4 times their number, men sprawling beyond the walls of the city, while the masts of their fleet crowd the horizon offshore. Godfrey has heard enough. He sends one final appeal north to Raymond and Robert of Normandy. March now, or everything the crusade has bled for will be forfeit by morning. The messengers reach Jerusalem that same evening, exhausted from a punishing ride through August heat. And this time, finally, the princes listen. Jerusalem's last soldiers file out that night, marching south under the stars. Behind them, they leave only Peter the Hermit and his acolytes, the wandering preacher whose fiery sermons had ignited the popular crusading movement in Europe years before, to pray amid the heaps of unburied dead and the silent churches of Christ's city. By dawn, the 2 crusader columns converge at Ibelin. Together, they turn south. Their formation is unlike anything from the campaigns of Europe. The army advances in a square, 3 columns of 3 regiments on every face, infantry and cavalry intermixed throughout. Roughly 130 knights and 1,000 foot soldiers to each contingent. The middle column floats in reserve, ready to support any face under pressure. It is a formation forged by 3 years of Eastern warfare, an army that can be struck from any direction and answer in kind. At the front, the holy relics lead the march. Patriarch Arnulf raises the true cross, and Raymond of Aguilers, undeterred by the controversy still clinging to the Holy Lance, brandishes it before the Provençal contingent. Each faction marches behind its own sacred icon. Then the vanguard halts. Ahead, blocking the road, are vast herds of animals, cattle, sheep, donkeys, camels, standing placidly across the line of march. Their guide from Ramla reads it immediately. This is Al-Afdal's opening move. The herds are bait, planted to break discipline and pull the army off its axis of advance. For men who have stared at starvation, it is a ferocious temptation. The army marches past without breaking ranks. That night, the Crusaders make camp, hear services, make confession, and touch the holy relics, every man committing himself to what morning will bring. Eerily, the herds they had passed hours earlier drift in from the darkness and stand at the edge of camp, as if following the army south. For the first time in longer than most can remember, the Crusaders bed down on full stomachs. 12th of August, 1099. The first units of the Crusader army emerge out of the mist and dark, eyes adjusting to the growing light in the east. Below them, the Al-Majdal plain reveals its secret, the tents and corrals of the Fatimid army. The Vizier's force is enormous, twice the size of the Crusader host. But these men have faced such odds before, in far worse circumstances, and have emerged the victors. As they march and walk their mounts down into the plain, The order of battle locks into place. Raymond of Toulouse commands the right wing, Godfrey the left. Robert of Flanders, Robert of Normandy, and Tancred lead in the centre. In the still, dark morning, the Crusaders march directly into range of the unmoving Fatimid camp. Trumpets blast. A scream rises along the line. Deus vult. The charge begins. Archers loose volley after volley of razor barbs into the unprotected tents and guard lines. Behind them, the infantry advances, systematically annihilating anything that stands in its path. Raymond of Toulouse, his contingent a stone's throw from the sea, rides through the paltry guard posts with ease. His men lash their lances into the tents and slash with swords, ripping the camp apart, sending startled Fatimids in headlong retreat toward the waves. On the wide left flank, Godfrey rides straight through to the city wall, throwing up a barrier before the gates to seal off any escape or reinforcement from within. At the centre, Tancred charges into the heart of the enemy, sowing chaos wherever he swings his weapons. But the Fatimid army is still 20,000 strong, and deep within the lines of tents, despite a catastrophic failure of reconnaissance, units begin to form and prepare for battle. The Vizier's captains are stunned. The enemy line before them is far larger than they had been told. In fact, it is a trick. The same vast herd of camels, donkeys and livestock that has trailed the Crusaders for days now forms up alongside the line, and from a distance swells their numbers in the eye of the beholder. Cattle aside, the Fatimids manage something real. A coherent staghorn formation surging forward in a clattering counterattack. The Crusader advance grinds to a halt under the impact. Among the attackers, Nubian Azapart troops wield vicious flails, weapons that shatter man and mount alike, armor or no armor. Now both sides trade missiles in agonizing volleys, stones from slingers, bolts from crossbows, hundreds of arrows every moment. Then the Crusader spearmen see it. A contingent of riders bursts from the Fatimid right, hurtling wide around to strike the rear of the line. In a few moments the battle has swung from straightforward demolition to hanging in the balance. The Grand Vizier Al-Afdal screams his horsemen forward. One good blow to tilt the Crusader line off balance, and the Fatimid superior numbers can finally be brought to bear, settling the matter for good. There are no more Crusader units left in Jerusalem. Everything they have is on this scrub-strewn field outside Ascalon. So when Fatimid riders threaten to break through to the infantry's rear, Godfrey, Jerusalem's new king, has no reserve to call on but himself. He bursts from the dust cloud with his companies racing behind him. The Crusaders cheer as he hurtles across the rough ground at terrifying speed, closing on the Fatimid contingent. Somehow his riders cut them off before they reach the rear, scattering them like bowling pins struck by a stone ball. The danger averted, the Crusaders renew their attack, and now, at the centre, the breaking point arrives. Robert of Normandy storms through the very heart of the enemy ranks, leading a mounted contingent straight into the core of the Fatimid camp. His target, the standard of the Golden Apple, a magnificent spear topped with a gold orb, sheathed in polished silver, its banner stitched with gold thread. By surprise and brutality combined, the Normans reach the sacred precinct and tear it apart. Robert seizes the Grand Standard himself, along with the Vizier's personal sword. The effect is immediate. Companies that had been fighting hard a moment before now break and run. Al-Afdal himself is already sprinting back toward Ascalon and its undefended gates. The retreat becomes a rout, total, frantic, blind with terror. Hundreds of fleeing Fatimid soldiers scramble up into the branches of sycamore trees to hide, only to be shot down like birds, one by one. Others throw themselves into the Mediterranean, drowning en masse as they try in vain to reach their fleet. By the end of the morning, the bulk of the Vizier's army lies dead. Al-Afdal escapes by ship back to Egypt. The pilgrims, meanwhile, are astounded at the wealth inside Al-Afdal's camp. Amid the spoils, Robert of Normandy makes a decision. His battlefield trophies will not be melted down or divided among the plunder. So he reaches into his own purse, 100 gold bezants, and buys the Vizier's silver standard outright from the loot pile. He intends to donate it to the Holy Sepulchre as a glorious trophy of victory. The wealth plundered by the Crusaders is beyond their wildest dreams. Nothing remains in Ascalon that could hold out against them. But for all their feats, the old disease returns. The Crusader leadership splits again. The Fatimid garrison at Ascalon, terrified by the collapse of their army, looks for a way out. They remember that Raymond of Toulouse organized safe passage for Fatimid prisoners in Jerusalem, and so they offer to surrender the city to him, and him alone. Godfrey of Bouillon will not stand for it. Suspicious of his rival's growing influence, he intervenes at once, demanding the city be handed to his own custody instead. Insulted, Raymond refuses to yield. In a stunning act of spite, he orders the Fatimid garrison to rescind their offer and keep fighting, then strikes camp and marches his men away. The illusion of Crusader unity is shattered permanently. Robert of Normandy and Robert of Flanders follow him out. Their domains back in Europe have sat vacant for 3 years. That is reason enough. They load their spoils onto their ships and sail for home, and the bulk of the army goes with them. Godfrey is left with a skeleton crew. He cannot maintain the siege of Ascalon. The army that began this venture 3 years ago, numbering perhaps up to 100,000 men, has dwindled to barely 300 knights and 2,000 foot soldiers. With this meager force, Godfrey must somehow garrison and defend Jerusalem itself. The vital port of Jaffa, his only lifeline to European supply ships, and the outposts of Bethlehem, Ramla, Lydda, and Hebron. Ascalon is spared a siege it surely would have lost. It will remain the focal point of Fatimid resistance to the new kingdom of heaven for decades to come. I appreciate you being here for the video. Please give that subscribe button a gentle medieval slap and tickle the like button to appease the almighty algorithm. It will help out the channel greatly. Cheers!